Well, good day to all of you. We have finally reached the last section of this novel, book 3. It has 13 chapters. We are doing Tender is the Night by Scott Fitzgerald. It's a sad story or a story of human nature, character, how it develops, how necessary it is to have aims and goals and live purposefully, because when we don't have aims and purposes, we're just sliding around and moving around aimlessly and then not even feeling very happy about it. So in the first book, they brought us right up to Dick Diver and his wife Nicole and the beautiful house at the Villa Diana and that Gosses Hotel where a lot of tourists would come, and how they interacted, and Rosemary Hoyt, the new Hollywood actress, so successful at Daddy's Girl, had come, and they got friendly. Dick admired Rosemary looked up to him, and then they spent some time at that beach there, and then they went on to Paris and they had some adventures, and that was book 1. Then in book 2, they tell you, how Dick came to Zurich. He was an American boy, Oxford Rhodes Scholar from Connecticut. Now he had studied medicine and he went on to complete his degree from Johns Hopkins, and then he came back to Zurich to study. In the war he was assigned a neurological unit. Then he came back and he was practicing, and at that time in one of the clinics that he was working for, Nicole had come, and she had come in 1916, and he had seen her, and she had been very impressed with him. She had been writing to him throughout the war. She had almost fallen in love with him, and the family was very rich, and they were keen that if a doctor married Nicole, who was diagnosed as schizophrenic, she had some traumas in her childhood, and because of which she had got disturbed. So they had thought that if they could find a doctor to marry her, it would be wonderful, and Nicole was lovely. And she just earnestly longed for Dick, and she admired him, and she was willing to surrender to him, and she was, just pouring out her emotions and her thoughts and her loving looks, and Dick succumbed and married her. And then the story goes on to all the adventures right up to where they had met at the beach. And then they move on, and as Nicole's money comes in, Dick buys a clinic, a share in a clinic, and then he's there, and then one of the patients accuses him of seducing her daughter, and that creates an unpleasantness. Nick goes out, his father dies, so he goes to America, attends the funeral, comes back, and after meeting Rosemary again, he realizes that this is nothing. There's nothing, no depth in that relationship, and so he thinks of Nicole. And there also he's a bit frustrated because she had got sick and upset when they were leaving Paris. And so on all that frustration, he goes out and, goes to the bar and the cabaret, beats up a taxi driver, beats up a policeman, and he's brought home to the Excelsior by baby Warren, Nicole's sister, in a very damaged condition. So that is where we have left him. And now in book 3, it's literally 1, 2, 3, 4, house of cards collapsing. There's 13 chapters, and in every chapter, Dick becomes less and less. But let's see. So in book 3, in chapter 1, it begins with Frau Mrs. Kathy Gregorovius. This is Franz's surname, Gregorovius, and she is telling her husband, and Nicole doesn't like me, I don't like Nicole, she pretends to be sick, you're watching her a long time. So Franz says, Nicole's money is given us this clinic and this comfort, you get upset. Now, actually, Franz was not so rich. His wife was also obviously not so rich, so, she had few clothes, few changes, literally Fitzgerald says few undergarments, and so she was smelling of it. And Nicole had always been rich, bathed and laundered and fresh and powdered, and so she didn't like the smell of Frau Kathy. and her children. So she didn't like the children to play, and she had that wrinkle her nose up and all, and just feel as if I'm superior, you're so dirty and I can't mix with you, and that would be very irritating. But she's also a doctor's wife, the partner's wife. So she was complaining, and then her husband said, "No, don't complain, what's the point?" But the whole chapter is about this, debating and arguing. And actually Dick admired from Kathy very much. So Franz said, "Really, Dick likes you very much. Why are you getting angry with Dick?" And she was thinking that, okay, if we don't want Nicole, we have to get rid of Dick. And if Dick has money, others also have money. And so finally the chapter ends with the fact that after, condemning Dick and Nicole, finally when Frau goes to sleep, Mrs. Kathy goes to sleep, she's thinking that actually Dick is not such a bad boy. And while Franz has been defending Dick all the time, he goes to sleep thinking, yes, Dick is not the great man that I thought he was. And so now there's that wedge between Franz and Dick mentally. So Dick has come back, he was still missing in chapter 1. And when Dick comes back, he tells, Nicole, I don't know how I got heard this, that, and the other, made some roundabout story about it. And baby said, he told baby, don't tell her, she'll get very shocked. And in that chapter, towards the half of it, there was a patient who was very sick. She was an artist, she was scabbed, and Dick had spent 3 nights. He just knew that she's going to go. And so to comfort her and console her, he had spent 3 nights watching by her bedside. And finally she died, and so he was very sad and became very unhappy and exhausted. And so Franz wanted him, to have a bit of a change. He says, see, you want to go anyway? He says, no. Then okay, go to Lausanne. We have a rich patient there. A Spanish man has brought his son. Go and see whether we should admit him. So Dick went. And at Lausanne he met this Seno Pardo Cuidad. C-U-I-D-A-D. Real, his name was Cuidad Real. Cuidad is another word for city in Spanish. A London handsome iron grey Spaniard from Spain. And he had his only son, again another rich handsome boy, but he was a homosexual. So in the early 1920s, it wasn't at all acceptable to be a homosexual, and the father was very ashamed, and he had tried all the kinds of treatments for his son. It hadn't worked. So he was wanting the doctor, who was so famous, to take his son and cure him. Now, a rich man has money at his disposal, so he can do anything. So Franz spent a day, spent some time chatting with the boy, and he realized that we won't be able to help him, but he still wanted to understand him. And then he met another chapter 1 to character that he had met at the beach, a man called Royal Dumfries. And Royal Dumfries said, your father-in-law is in a hospital here. He's dying. We don't know. I thought you came to see him. Oh my God. At once, Dick was galvanized. He looked for the doctor, Dr. Dangu, D-A-N-G-E-U. And he said, can I see him? And then he met the doctor, then he met his father-in-law. And the father-in-law said, I'm dying, I'm going to see my daughter. So now Didi didn't know what to do, but he still wanted to phone his friend, Franz. And when he didn't find Franz, he told the wife, he said, Nicole's father is dying and he wants to see her. But, and then the phone got cut. And he couldn't tell her that, don't tell Nicole. And she tried not to tell her, but then Nicole was boasting and, showing off and being super zealous, just I'm better than you, smarter than you. And so she said, your father's dying and he wants to see you. And Nicole left the children and got into a train and she went there. But by the time she reached, already Mr. Warren had just had another leap of life, a burst of life, and he had walked out of the hospital and gone by train to Paris. So Nicole was feeling pity for her husband, that why you have to meet so many wrecks, why do all these bad, wicked, damaged people come to see you, and didn't realize that after all, she's also one of them. And then that chapter ends on that note that the bar was playing music or a song, the wedding of the painted doll. Now, just like if we would talk about Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum, some song which all of us have heard, and it would ring a bell in our minds, and we say, oh, that song. So we don't know so many English songs, at least personally I don't know. I don't hear a lot of English music. So, but it is, painted doll. A doll is someone who's not real, or who's only just good for a beauty. You can't make a doll do anything. So it's like that Nicole is that doll, like an irony on behalf of Fitzgerald. Okay, now they went back home, and when they went home, again there was a quarrel. Last time in chapter 15 of book 2, Nicole had that letter from that lady who said, you've seduced my daughter. This time there was a Mr. Morris who was shouting and getting angry with Dick that, we have brought our son to be cured for alcoholism, and twice a day, man, you are reeking of drink. Slowly, Dick had been taking little drink, whether it's wine or gin or vodka or something or the other, he would be drinking at every meal. And he thought he was having a little bit, but then as a doctor, especially a psychiatric doctor who's attending patients, definitely he should not be found to blame. And he was very angry, and he went away. With one patient lost. So when Franz came back, they confessed, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize that I'm drinking. And Franz very quickly, in chapter 1 only, his wife had convinced him that there's other American money apart from Dick. So, and Dick was wondering, he said, he got to take leave, and he was wondering how will I ask for more money, and at once Franz said, don't worry about the money, within a year I'll return it to you. Well, that means they could leave immediately. But their Villa Diana was on rent. So they said, a few months are left, we will enjoy, in different hotels. Imagine the kind of money they had. So they'll spend some holidays in German spas and French cathedral towns, train trips. And on one of the trips, they were going to meet Mary. Abbey North had died in that speakeasy. Now Mary had married a manganese magnate. That man, a rich man, was given his ancestry as a Kaibal, Berber, Sabayan, Hindu strain. In the mountains, his name was Hussain, and so he had some Balochistan type of, his ancestry was there in the mountains, and he looked light, not as light as Europeans, but light, and he was wealthy, and Mary had invited them. And then you have a page of travel and luggage. That Mary had light luggage and heavy luggage, and two of the maids would, be the governesses would be in charge of the luggage, and she had lists of the luggage, and phonograph, a typewriter, tennis rackets, hat boxes, shoe boxes, trunks. Oh my God, lots of luggage, and she had organized it very well. So when they got off the train at that place where Mary's family would meet them, and when Mary's husband came, there were, two turbaned, 4 turbaned retainers on bikes, 2 half-veiled females, and a lot of entourage, a lot of people following, and so the divers looked nothing compared to that wealth. And they went to the house, and there was a lot of salam. There was a Muslim house, a lot of veils and all of the women. And when Mary was talking about her family, Dick was half asleep or mesmerized by the surroundings. Oh man, Mary's married such a rich man, and he didn't listen. Later on, when Lanier was asked, the boy was taken for a bath, he looked and he felt that he was put in a bathtub from which the Mary's husband's son had been taken out, and he had some skin condition, some trouble here. And so the boy was a bit, if you never had, imagine getting into another bathtub. Thank God we Indians generally don't have this custom. We have fresh water in a bucket for our bath. But imagine if we have water which is not looking very clear, then we are a bit suspicious of it. What kind of, why is the water not clear? So, Lania was saying, I think the water was dirty. So he told his mother told his father. Then in the meantime, some ladies came to the room to see, and he told them, you clean the room, clean the bathtub. And they were very upset and shocked and disappeared. He thought all the male ladies are servants in the house, she's a rich lady, but they were actually a husband's two sisters. In Mary North's husband's family, it was a custom that if the brother got married, then two sisters would wait upon his wife and children. So these two sisters had become what is called Humayadun, and they were very insulted that imagine your guests asked us to clean the bathtub. So they went away, then Hussain went away, then Mary also had to go somewhere. So this family thought that this is very dangerous, let us leave this house, and they came back. They've reached Villa Diana in chapter 5, and both of them are thinking. Because of his drinking, Dick has lost a clinic. Mary also must have got to know. What has happened in this chapter 5, or up to chapter 5, is like in 1916 they got married. This is about 25, 26, 10 years have passed. And though Nicole has collapsed 3 times when Topsy was born at the party, and when that Negro was found stabbed in Paris, but she's getting to be more and more confident and sure of herself. And when you read one of Nicole's early descriptions, it says that she had a structure that would look good even when she aged. So she is, about 20, say she may have been 18 or something when she got married, 18, 19. So she got 28, 29, she's still looking good, strong, beautiful. And her husband has been drinking and frustrated and selfish and unhappy and not doing the right thing at all of any kind. Of course he loved his children and spent a lot of time with them, but otherwise nothing much was happening. So he is looking physically weak and drawn out, and his face has lost his luster. Tommy Barban had said, you're not looking jaunty. So they are, sitting and spending time and don't know what to say to each other, because anything can cause a quarrel or a repercussion. So chapter 5 opens the fact that Dick is scolding the cook. There's a French cook called Augustine, and she's saying, oh, you're drinking, and she's got a knife in her hand, and he says, you're drinking my vintage wines, and there's a quarrel, and of course he gives her some money, the whole month's salary, and says, please go. Now Nicole is getting worried. This man can't control himself, he can't control his drinking, servants are complaining about his drinking. Chalo, they go out for dinner, and they take a launch to drive on the lake, and there's a friend, a person whom they know, a man called T.F. Golding. He's got a big launch and he's got a party going on, and Dick says, come, let's go there. So they have stopped going to parties and giving parties, so come on, and he goes. But that bitterness is there inside him. He's getting drunk also, he's bitter also, so he's nasty with it. He says most impolite and undiplomatic things that should not be said. He keeps saying them, irritating people everywhere. And the launch goes up to a place called Nice, and then they are boarding there. And Tommy is also on the launch, and Nicole is so happy to see him. He's looking good and brown and smart, and he's been acting in some films and all. So Tommy sees that Dick is in a very bad state, and he tells Nicole, come on, I'll drive you on. So Tommy drives them, sleeps the night there, and Nicole is worried what's happening to my husband. He's getting weaker and more helpless and not able to control himself. He's no longer always in the right. I cannot depend upon him. And here Tommy looking smart and good and wonderful. So in the morning, Tommy and Dick were talking, breakfast time, and Nicole is wondering, I think it's time, my husband is not very good, I can take a lover, sleep with some other man, and women are doing it. Tommy has to go, he drove them down, he has to go back, he's got a hotel somewhere, and he has a little bit of a cough. So they have a camphor, jar of camphor, kapoor, a jar of kapoor ointment, and they used to buy it from Paris. So Nicole tells him, you come and take it. So husband says, you can't give the whole jar, we are buying it from Paris, it is imported. Oh, and she gives it. And though it's a very mild gesture, but just Dick thinks that now she has no value for me and she has value for Tommy, and I'm of no use. And he gets the message and he's very upset. And he goes to his room and he's looking at the ceiling and looking very serious and somber. And when Nicole comes in, she doesn't have the courage to talk to him. Then life goes on like that, a bit in that silent mode of conversation. Only the children get a lot of attention from their father. And then 2 letters come to the house, and when they're sitting, Nicole and Dick, they share. Nicole gets a letter, that Tommy is thanking them, that God was so good to me. And Rosemary has sent a letter that I'm coming to boss alone, mommy can't come. And Nicole, she waits grimly for Rosemary. So again, my husband is going to misbehave. Well, they both go together. She said, I want to see both of you. So they both go to the beach. And then again, Dick is trying to be charming and to Rosemary, and Nicole sees this all pretense. Then they are in a boat. There's some surfing can be done from that boat. You have to get on the boat or surf and all. It's a complicated thing. And Dick thinks that he's young enough and strong enough to do it. But he is, because of his drink, his body is weak and he cannot perform and he looks very helpless. He comes home and seeing her husband helpless, Nicole realizes that it is time that I think about my life and my future. And there's again a wonderful line there in the chapter. Otherwise, others would do it. That she needed to start thinking, otherwise, others would do it. Take your power, pervert you, discipline your natural tastes, civilize and sterilize. It's harsh words. We are all thinking, and then sometimes we are not thinking and letting others think. There's so many situations that are presented before us, and sometimes we really think and sometimes we don't think, and we accept what someone else tells us as true without discovering facts. So, it's a minute to pause. Am I thinking really about myself? Now, some of you have read the novel, some of you have not read the novel, you're just putting me on and listening. Some are eager to learn, okay, I think I better read this and find out more. Some are not, I'm just talking and you're listening. So why are you doing your MA? What will you get out of your MA? What will you learn, from this? How will you gain? This is my first attempt at reading this novel was left a very bad taste in my mouth. I was very sad. But when I read that even Fitzgerald had a sick wife and he was writing this desperately to earn some money, and he was showing all the pain of his wife and himself. He wasn't personally as loyal as Dick is, but he was thinking that what a man can do. So he was thinking of trying to use the current situation and create a novel. And because Americans like to boast about what they've seen and what they've heard, so you have all these parties and trips and things and a mockery of them. If all that I have in my house is things to show you, and I'm not able to sit with you or talk to you and ask how you are, what is the point? You could have gone to a museum. If you have come to my house should not be a museum. And neither should your house be a museum. If you have a lovely white silken sofa and no one can sit on it, what's the point of the sofa? The sofa is to be sat upon. So anything that we do, why do we do it? In India we have so many customs. Now you see people are getting married, people are being cremated without anyone, and it's all valid. Sometimes there are 5 guests, sometimes there are 15 guests, sometimes there are 3 guests. from each side. And marriages are going on, they will have children, they will have family, they'll say we got married, they might give a party next year, year after next, when their son's first birthday or fifth birthday or whatever. But now they could not do it even if they had the money. So is it essential? Is it important? Is spending that money, for which we spend all our lives to earn and then blow it up one day? One night this whole, place when you looks like a garden, like a palace, like anything beautiful. But do we live in palaces like that we want to go into a palace for a meal? So all the things that we do, they require some thinking. And this novel also says that Nicole realizes that if she doesn't think, others will take power over her. And so she was, feeling confident, growing up, standing alone. And in the morning, she went out shopping, Dick was sleeping. When she came back, there was another note from Dick that he has gone to Provence, to some part of France for a few days. And Tommy phoned her, I'm coming to see you. And she was so thrilled and happy. Never mind my Dick, now she's already cutting off from him. And she's happy to see Tom. And chapter 8 is all about Tom and Nicole. They didn't do too much talking, but they were happy sitting together. They had lunch out, they slept together. They were so happy. But she had never done this before. And so when she comes home, she says, I'm tired of this train. The whole day she had tried to be smiling and beautiful and lovely. And but she was tired. Now Dick came back quickly. He said, I just took Rosemary to Avignon. I didn't tell you, you'll get upset. But she has not grown up. She's still that child. I don't want her. And then he was sitting and thinking in his room. Now he doesn't want Rosemary. And it looks like Nick doesn't want him. And Fitzgerald has described him as if, all the emotions of the memories of the past are just like gliding over his face. And he's seeing things happen and move on and move on. And, like his life, his compromises, his adjustments. And he's feeling a failure. And Nicole is looking at him and reading his face and realizing that she's the winner. Her money, her sister's support, her health and beauty against his physical deterioration, his morality. Now, he had been friendly with Rosemary a bit, but then it wasn't, there was no non-stop letters and non-stop visits. And otherwise, in general, he had taken very good care of her. So he had tried to keep up his side of the bargain. He was a husband and he would take care of her. She was now being unscrupulous. Now, Christian marriages, when they have a marriage in church, in the court, they just say you may take this one as your lawful husband or your lawful wife. But if they have a marriage in church, they have very simple vows but very profound. For richer or for poorer, for better or for worse, and in sickness and in health. So whether you get richer, I'll still be happy to be your wife or husband. Whether you get poorer, I'll still be faithful to you. Whether you are sick or you are healthy. So if you deteriorate physically, still I'll be your wife. If you get better and stronger, I'll still be there. For better, you become a nobler person. Good. For worse, an alcoholic, violent, terrible, suspicious. So she didn't remember those vows at all. So she just, felt that I'm the superior one and I can manage, and she just cut the cord. And normally we use this phrase only when the midwife cuts the cord of the baby attached to the mother. But it is because that is such a vital link, nourishing link. The mother nourishes the child, sends oxygen, food, everything for the child to grow. So cutting the cord is an expression that means in that, like that umbilical cord, that vital link that joins husband and wife. She just cut it mentally and let him be. And she wanted to leave him, forgetting her own flawed past. She had not been the perfect wife. She is the one who had been sick. Her sins, outrages and mistakes. And she saw him from there and she walked away. And Dick got that impression. My God, they were so much in sync with each other. They could read each other's mind so well that he also felt that now he was at liberty. He was free. So he was not bound to Nick anymore. Well, in the morning, that day at 2 o'clock in the morning, got a call from the jail. His friend Mary North, and he had met this Sibley Beers at some very fashionable lady at some party somewhere. They had dressed up as men and gone to the beach and tried to get two ladies, to sleep with them. And they wanted to have fun. But when those two girls discovered that the people who had hired them were actually women, they were very insulted and angry. And they complained and got these two ladies arrested and put in jail. Now, the police, it was a weird kind of crime, and the police were a bit stumped as to what they should do. And when Dick went, and told them that Mary North was the wife of a magnate, Muslim magnate, and he was a powerful man, and the government would be, he would be in great risk, the police would be at risk. And Sibley Beers was almost engaged to one of the dukes in England, and it could mean war. And so that poor simple policeman was confused. They gave him 5,000 francs that you distribute this among all those who are affected, and you let these ladies go. Dick didn't go with 5,000 francs. He just stopped at Goss Hotel, took the owner, said, "You take out, empty your drawers of money, we need to help them." And he had gone and helped them. Well, came back. Now, Dick and Nicole had a custom, had a habit that they would always go for a haircut at the same salon, each one in a different chamber. And they were having their haircut. Tommy came and he said, "I want to talk to you." And Nicole's hair hadn't been cut properly. He said, "No, I want to talk to you just now." He took them out. And then he told Dick, "Your wife doesn't love you, she loves me." They had a conversation, and a singularly undramatic conversation. Nicole was saying, "Actually, if I'm not there, you have to look after me, you'll be free, you'll do some great work." And then Tommy said, you thought she was sick, and so even now you treat her like a sick patient. So Dick agreed. He said, "Yes, it's quite true, but I think it's better for both of us, Nick and me, to talk, and we will discuss this." Okay. Then Fitzgerald, with his brevity, these are complicated things. Who's right? Who's wrong? He doesn't want us to take too many sides. He just wants us to look at the picture. So he just says in chapter 12 that Dick left the Riviera, that place, his Villa Diana. He hugged his children, he hugged the maid, hugged the gardener, and left notes for Nicole and baby Warren. Nicole had said, "I'll sleep, you can go away quietly in the morning." Then he went to the beach. The beach was where he had made many friends over the years. So he went to the beach. Mary North was at the beach. So he talked to her and tried to remember old days. And she told him, she said that in these recent years you've been so cruel. I've been apologizing for your bad words the whole year. And you've cut off nourishment for yourself. In Korea there's a proverb that if you want to put mud on someone, you have to smear your hand first. So when we are harsh to others, we automatically will get a harsh response. Besides the debris or the result of that harshness in our hearts and on our faces. So she just pointed out his fault. Then, now when he was at the beach, there already baby and Nicole and Tommy had come to the beach. Because their house was on a cliff, there was no beach near their house. They used to all come there only to the beach. So Nicole said, "No, he's been a good husband, let me say bye to him. He's never hurt me." But sit, don't get up and go. He didn't let her go. And Dick moved away. This thought. Then we come to the very last chapter of the novel. It is like an understatement. Nick kept writing to Dick after a new marriage. And in America, he kept moving from place to place. Buffalo, Batavia, Lockport, Geneva, Hornet. These are different parts in New York. suburbs of New York, getting smaller and smaller. And she hoped he would do something great in the beginning. He did a lot of bicycling in Lockport. Somewhere he presented papers. Sometimes they called him as a doctor to make a speech. But then his violence got hold of him, or his drink. He got involved in a lawsuit, and he got friendly with some staff of a small medical store, and he stopped asking to have the children sent to America. He couldn't afford to keep them. And if Nick ever asked him, do you need some money, he would never reply. And so she knew that he's somewhere in New York, and that is all there is to it. So he just shrank to nothing at the end of the day. There was anger, there wasn't a fight, there wasn't any abuse, there was no bad words. They had both lived so close to each other that they understood each other. He is thinking, imagine when you're thinking, I don't know how expressive we are, but can someone read all our thoughts over half an hour from our faces? And that's what Nicole had done. And when she just shrugged her shoulders and left, Dick thought, okay, now she's finished with me, so at least I'm also free, she doesn't need me. So when we look like we've climbed a mountain, or we've climbed down a mountain when the novel is done, there's lots to think about. I'd like you to make a list of characters, main characters that you have been meeting, that are integral to the building up of the story and talking about it. And you see, if you can write a kind of a summary, you also sum it up and get all the names and the people, in some kind of order. Take care, all the best, happy reading.